Welcome in. It's time for another Morning Espresso on the SDH Network, presented by Oglethorpe University, Atlanta's premier undergraduate learning experience and soccer powerhouse. I'm Jason Longshore, and these Friday Morning Espressos get kind of random because there's lots of different nuggets going into the weekend with games all over the world. We'll talk about some of those nuggets. We'll look into MLS as well, as Atlanta United will be back at home at the Benz, the second game of three straight at home here early in the season. It's match week 7 in MLS. Other leagues around the world coming to their conclusions. In the women's game, we have an international break, and the U.S. women's national team will be in action in LA at SoFi Stadium Saturday night against Brazil. Trinity Rodman back with the group. Hate to hear what Trinity talked about in the media over this past week with her back issues that has limited her playing time, and she's not sure if her back will ever quite be the same. And that's something that you worry about from a career longevity standpoint. Getting her back in this team is huge. She's one of the most creative players that the U.S. women's national team has ever had. This is a different group. Remember, last summer it was the U.S. beating Brazil in the gold medal game of the Olympics in Paris. 10 players who were part of that group are not with the team for this series. So a lot of opportunity for new faces to cement themselves for Emma Hayes and the U.S. women's national team. That process, look, it starts tomorrow night against Brazil. It's been ongoing for some players, but for others, this is that door opening, and we'll see where that goes, especially with yesterday's news that in 6 years, the Women's World Cup will be here in the United States. And yeah, I already put it out on my social media. I've said it multiple times. I said it publicly at the great event that SDH and CSE and YAH put together last month over at Wild Leap. Atlanta should be out in front lobbying to host that Women's World Cup final in 2031. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, one of the best stadiums in the world. Atlanta, one of the best soccer cities in the world. A huge opportunity, and I would love to see Atlanta get out in front of that race to host the final in 2031. The draw for the third round of the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup was held on Thursday. The remaining USL Championship teams enter the tournament in the third round. Some of the matchups that jumped out to me: Charlotte Independence hosting North Carolina FC on Tuesday, April 15th. Portland Hearts of Pine in Maine, they're hosting Rhode Island, also on the 15th. Tormenta will make the trip up to Charleston. That's a bit of a rivalry. That's on the 15th as well. We go over to the 16th on Wednesday. FC Naples of USL League One hosting the Tampa Bay Rowdies. One Knoxville, they got to go all the way out to Colorado Springs. New Mexico and El Paso is a sneaky good one on the 16th. El Farolito, the last amateur team in the tournament, they got to go to Sacramento to face Sacramento Republic. Chattanooga Red Wolves, they've got a very long trip going to Las Vegas on Wednesday, April 16th. CBS Sports is going to air every match from the third round on Paramount Plus. We'll have the bulk of them. Select games will be on CBS Sports Network and Golazo Network. Can't wait to see these next rounds of the Open Cup. And while we're talking U.S. soccer, let's talk about this weekend. It's a special day on Sunday as the San Jose Earthquakes will host DC United. It's part of the celebration of the 30th season of MLS. April 6th, 1996, it was the San Jose Clash hosting DC United. Bruce Arena was involved. He was just coaching DC, not San Jose like he is this time around. They're not playing at Spartan Stadium, thankfully, one of the most narrow stadiums you could find. Would assume that quite a few luminaries from that day will be on hand in San Jose on Sunday. It's the middle game of the Sunday schedule in MLS. Eric Winalda scored that goal that won the game for San Jose late. Would assume he would be in the building in San Jose for this. And MLS released a mini documentary yesterday, Major League Soccer, 30 years in the making. They talked to Landon Donovan. They talked to Tony Meola. They talked to David Beckham. Garth Lagerwey, our friend here in Atlanta, the president and CEO of Atlanta United. The quote from him is hilarious. He was a goalkeeper from 96 to 2000. He said this about MLS abolishing the 35-yard shootout tiebreaker. It was absolutely devastating. You're talking to the shootout king, literally the best record ever for shootouts, this guy right here. Yeah, we're going to talk to Garth about that tomorrow on the pregame show for Atlanta United and Dallas. We're going to get into it. I love the 35-yard shootout. I would rather see that than penalties as a tiebreaker, not for draws during the regular season like MLS did back in the day, but to decide matches in knockout situations. I would love to see it. I know that makes purists angry. I don't care. I think it's a more fair way to determine a winner than the penalty shootout. So that's just me. Yell at me if you want. All right. Speaking of yelling, let's go to Spain. I yelled a little bit about this yesterday, and we have really no resolution in general. We have more confusion now as the Consejo Superior de Deportes, the CSD in Spain, the Spanish government's high sports council, they suspended a decision reached by the Spanish Football Federation and La Liga to cancel the sporting licenses, the registrations of Dani Olmo and Pau Victor. Remember, there was an appeal by Barcelona to the CSD when those players could not be registered for the second half of the season. That appeal was upheld, it was reviewed, and now it has been, I guess, more formally upheld, although La Liga is going to appeal the decision. So I don't know how many appeals you get in this situation. This part of it, remember, Barcelona, they missed the December 31st deadline to extend the licenses. They didn't have the money in their accounts, reportedly, or promise of their accounts, or whatever, to register these guys. It ended up getting approved, that money coming in, which is a whole nother question, on January 3rd, which was after the deadline. They were able to be registered. The CSD said that the monitoring committee established by La Liga and the Federation was not entitled to make such decisions. So this is getting down to technicalities, not the actual issue. So La Liga is going to appeal. La Liga said that the player licenses expired on December 31st, so they weren't revoked. The CSD also addressed kind of the issues that we talked about yesterday with the auditor that Barcelona employed for 4 days, the unnamed rogue auditor that said that, yes, they received $100 million for VIP seating that didn't show up on previous reports, even ones issued on December 31st or ones issued after January 3rd. Nobody seems to know what companies bought these seats for $100 million. I believe they're from Qatar and Saudi Arabia, but that's been vague from Barcelona leadership. The CSD said that this decision that they made yesterday was not about the economic controls that La Liga realizes with its associated clubs. It's about rules. We'll see. This is not going to go away. The rest of La Liga, the clubs in La Liga are furious about the way all of this has been handled. Barcelona is in the midst of a great season, and this is a huge issue in the background to it. And we'll see if it rears its ugly head again this year. Speaking of rearing ugly heads, let's go to the Premier League. Chelsea, they sold their women's team to themselves, which allowed them to turn a pre-tax profit of $168 million in 2023 and 2024 in that season. Uh, what? You sold the team to yourself? How does that work? Well, the Premier League lets clubs get creative in terms of getting around their profitability and sustainability rules, which doesn't seem to make any sense. Why have the rule if you're just going to allow literally selling your own thing to yourself? Like, really? This is what we're doing? They already did this once. Chelsea did this with two hotels that they sold to a sister company in a transaction worth £76.5 million in the 2022-23 financial year. So Chelsea said that was a fair valuation. That ultimately was not a fair valuation. There was a market value process carried out by the Premier League. The number was adjusted. Nobody said by what. Now, UEFA rules don't let you sell your own things to yourself, which I don't know, seems to be a reasonable take on this whole process. Now, UEFA's rules, though, what happens if you're not within the financial fair play numbers for them? They're just going to fine you. They've already done this before. In September 2022, they charged 8 clubs with failing to comply with financial fair play. PSG were hit with a €10 million fine. Manchester United were fined €300,000 in July of 23 for a minor breach of FFP rules. All right, Chelsea will cut a check. But to get on the good side of the Premier League, to sell your own women's team to yourself seems to be pretty I don't know, insulting to the actual rules of the competition. But the Premier League doesn't really seem to care. Not enough clubs voted in favor of stopping clubs from being able to sell fixed assets to themselves. So why even do the song and dance with rules? And when you're getting into everything with Manchester City, and some people want to get very upset about that, but then not get very upset about other clubs selling things to themselves, it's all a joke. And just come up with actual rules that you're going to enforce, and don't do this. This is dumb. Please get it right. You're supposed to have these rules in place so clubs don't spin themselves into oblivion. Chelsea's not going out of business. Manchester City's not going out of business. Arsenal's not going out of business. Manchester City's yelling at Arsenal saying rules are tilted to favor them because they can invest in themselves, and just stop. You're not going to actually create parity. You're not trying to with these rules, by the way, but you're not really doing anything to affect the large teams. You're making it difficult for them to invest. And you're not really helping the smaller teams either, because there's always ways around these rules. So you're not actually enforcing sustainability. So if you want to do it right. If you don't, just stop the song and dance. It's ridiculous. Speaking of songs and dances, Reading, they are trying to survive because they have not done a good job with any of this about profitability or sustainability. I don't know the last time they saw a profit. Their owner, Dai Young, he has to sell the club. He was disqualified under the league's owners and directors test in February. Got debts, got court rulings in his native China. He was supposed to have sold the club by this weekend. There's been an extension by the Football League. They have until now, late April, to get this done, April 22nd. So a little bit more time. Supposedly, there has been progress. Reading might survive. If they don't sell by April 22nd, then reportedly they're going to be kicked out of the Football League. We will see how this goes down, but an extension has been granted on this sale. Let's get silly now. Let's go to Mexico and Monterrey. Uh, Martin Di Michelis has not made friends at Rayados. His team is in ninth in the Liga MX table. They were eliminated from CONCACAF. There were reports that he was going to get fired when that happened. Remember, he told the club to sell Brandon Vasquez before he even appeared at the club, wanted him gone. They got a little bit of a return on their investment, but they didn't get all their money back because they had to rush the sale to Austin. Now you've got a player in Sergio Canales who is getting into an argument with Di Michelis on the training pitch, according to all of the reports in Mexico. He was angry. He left the field. He goes into the building and he kicked a glass door and broke it, and now has 10 stitches in his left leg. Good times in Monterrey. Very, very good times. Canales might play this weekend against Chivas, according to TUDN. So stay tuned on that one. But yeah, this is not working out with Martin Di Michelis, and I don't imagine it's going to last a whole lot longer. We'll see. Speaking of things not lasting a long time, I'm having fun with the transitions this morning. Brazil national team manager. Job's open. Dorival Jr. was fired. We've talked about Carlo Ancelotti. We've talked about Jorge Jesus as two of the leading candidates. Abel Ferreira has been linked as well. And according to pundits in Brazil, Jose Mourinho has been linked to this job. And that is absolutely insane. We talked about it yesterday. This is a guy who's grabbing the noses and squeezing, honking noses of opposing managers after games. Even if that manager took a dive afterwards, it's still ridiculous. He honked the nose of a grown man after a game. This is what Jose Mourinho did. He stuck his finger in the eye. This is when he was really winning things. He stuck his finger in the eye of an opposing assistant coach. All of the shenanigans that have happened pretty much everywhere he's been ever, but in increasing frequency with fewer wins and shorter periods of time that he is in charge of places. It's getting worse and worse. If you hire him now, he might not make it to the World Cup in 2026. Brazil, come on, man. Like, his football is nothing like what Brazil aspires to be. And his character right now is nothing like what Brazil aspires to be. Don't do it. PSG, they can seal their fourth straight league on title if they get a result. They just have to not lose against Angers on Saturday. 12-time champions. They're unbeaten domestically this season. They're still on for a quadruple. They won the Super Cup in France. They play Aston Villa in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. They play Stade de Reims in the Coupe de France final, and they're going to win Ligue 1. Now, news this morning, right before we started the morning espresso, Kevin De Bruyne, he is going to leave Manchester City on a free at the end of the current season. He said his goodbyes publicly to Manchester City. Where will he end up? He has been linked with a move to Major League Soccer. That could get very interesting now that he is planning to leave Manchester City at the end of the current season. Fabrizio Romano and many, many others had this, and then De Bruyne issued his statement as well. Some quick nuggets around MLS. Atlanta will host FC Dallas this Saturday, 7:30. Pregame coverage starts at 6:30 on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. Go back and check out the Training Ground Dispatch from yesterday with myself and Madison Cruz. You'll hear from Ronnie Dyla. You'll hear from Brooks Lennon. We'll give you our thoughts on what we've seen this week for Atlanta United. Charlotte and Nashville are going to kick off the weekend at 2:30 on Saturday. Two teams in the East, level on points, level on goal differential, and identical 3-2-1 records. Red Bull hosting Chicago. I want to see how Chicago continues to grow under Greg Berhalter. Philadelphia hosting Orlando is a really interesting one. Remember, Philadelphia has already won in Central Florida this season. Is this a revenge match for Orlando and Chester? We're going to find out. Austin hosting Portland in the green battle between the two green teams in the league. I want to see if Portland can continue doing what they've been doing lately under Phil Neville. LAFC is on the road at Houston on Saturday night. Miami is hosting Toronto on Sunday. Will they be looking ahead to their CONCACAF second leg after some friction in the first leg? Could have been a red card to Nathan Ordaz. It wasn't. I think it should have been, looking at it a little bit more closely. Ordaz scored the winner. LAFC has the 1-0 advantage going into the second leg in Fort Lauderdale. Kansas City, their first game without Peter Vermes involved with the club in a very, 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 very long time. That's going to be a home match against St. Louis on Saturday night. And then the late game on Saturday night, if you're going to the Benz, watching Atlanta and Dallas, the game you will want to turn on when you get home, San Diego hosting Seattle. I'm really looking forward to that one late night on Saturday night on Apple TV's MLS Season Pass. Check out the documentary on MLS on Apple TV. Tune in a little bit if you can to San Jose and DC on Sunday, a really cool celebration of the 30th season of Major League Soccer. And hopefully you'll tune in on Monday to the next Morning Espresso. We'll recap everything from the weekend. Those of us in the SDH Network, we've got St. Pius at Marist tonight, a big rivalry game in the city of Atlanta. You can listen to that on our Mixler channel. Saturday, obviously, tons of coverage of Atlanta United and FC Dallas, but our day will start at 10 a.m. I'll be on the call alongside Joe Freihofer for Atlanta's U18s hosting Inter Miami. Madison Cruz and Jarrett Smith will have the U16s at noon. Then we have the first team game at the Benz. Sunday, Atlanta United 2 hosting Orlando. All the things, all the soccer. We will be everywhere. That's what we do. It's the SDH Network. Thank you for listening to the Morning Espresso, presented by Oglethorpe University.